This meeting is being recorded. Yes, I'm just setting the record button on. I'll mention that in a minute. I see that I think it was Sandora that started a chat asking where people are calling in from. So thank you. Let me begin just even saying that our guest presenters today are outside of Canada right now. As you can see, there's green and lush behind them. They are in Chile at the moment. So I'm still going to admit people into this session, and I will begin. So welcome to the 7th episode of the Society for Organic Urban Land Care's 2022 Year of the Ecological Garden series, a year-long weekly series held every Tuesday at this time. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Christine. I'm a project lead with Soul, and I'll be your host. I live and work in Ottawa on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. To give you some background for today's presentation, the 4th in this series in February, Soul launched a program called the Greener Greenspaces to recognize urban green spaces such as city parks, gardens, and campuses across the country that are designed, cared for, and nurtured using practices that support ecological health, promote biodiversity, and take steps to minimize waste and ecological footprints. We were very pleased this year to recognize 26 sites from 8 provinces across the country. Each week during this month, we are featuring one of these green spaces in this webinar series. So today's format, it will be a short presentation by the guests, and then we will have time for discussion. As host, I will facilitate the question and answer by monitoring questions in the chat box. But please also feel free to ask questions yourself. If you would like to unmute yourself later on, we can do it that way, and you can ask the question directly. This episode is being recorded and will be made available to everyone who registered for today's webinar. Finally, I would like to recognize that much of Soul's work to promote awareness and practice of organic and urban land care is made possible through the generous and ongoing support of Gaia College. So now I'm ready to introduce today's guest speakers. Today we have 2 presenting from the Naramata Permaculture Farm Garden, Catalina and Tomas. Catalina has a background in architecture and permaculture design, and she's also in the process of completing courses from Gaia College towards the organic land care diploma. Tomas's background is also many things: ecotourism administrator, forest ranger, naturalist guide, and all of which I think together their professional backgrounds have influenced their thinking and their vision. So they are both the co-stewards and key influencers of this Naramata Permaculture Farm Garden. So welcome, Catalina and Tomas.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you, Christine. Yeah, starting by thank you Soul for organizing this great series, and thank you everyone that is joining us today. I'm Catalina, and
I'm Tomas.
So we're gonna tell you about the story of the Naramata Permaculture Farm Garden, as you said. For us, it all started as part of a journey, as we have been visiting different places professionally and recreative, exploring nature, observing. We very strongly think that we need to take this quest of changing the perception of our living ways and the landscape in where we belong. We need to integrate how humans live and coexist with nature. And we are sure, and the garden itself is an example of that we can create this synergic relation among nature and humans, we humans being part of nature, of course, but I guess we need to explain that to
humans.
Yes, to ourselves again. This journey, of course, at a certain point arrived to a place. And the place is very important for us, Naramata. We've been lucky to arrive here. Naramata as a physical, geographical location, Okanagan Valley, great growing conditions, but also great community, great spirit. As we wrote when this was written 3 years ago, as we have experienced living in Naramata, we felt that peaceful way of life. You can feel as you walk in the streets how pedestrians have this slow and friendly atmosphere. And in this place, it's also these great partners that join us in the quest of creating this synergic relation between humans and nature. It's the Naramata Center. So we partner with them, and in this image, you can see that red line is the Naramata Center property. This red dot was an old community garden. So that's a great structure and place that we found and that we shared with them, talk about the possibilities. It's located in the intersection of two main streets that lead to the. So you have lots of people going around, lots of people wanting to know what's going out there. And yeah, so we knew that this garden has the potential to offer the community a place to enjoy nature while learning how people can coexist with healthy ecosystems that provide food and joy.
Also, just to add, like, it's interesting to observe in the image how the human use of the space is not very different to the ecological use of the space. You can see that the Ellie Street is parallel to the creek, in where you have the natural biological corridor with all those trees, green and lushy. And as well, 4th Street connects that with the lake in front, and Manitou Park, that is another green spot of the town. So
yeah, it's a good spot too, a good place. In this place, there are different conditions that facilitate and enable the growing of this idea of this garden. One of many, as I said, was the urban conditions. This picture shows the state of the garden in 2018, if I'm not wrong. So lots of grass because it was unused for a couple of years, but we did have assets. We had water, we had the fence built. As we talk about the urban conditions, we have lots of accessibility, visibility. We have this great community that engage with this kind of projects. We have amazing partners. As we talk about the Naramata Center being the owners of the land and the stewards, yes. I'm going to talk about the roots later. Tourism, we have lots of people visiting and wanting to learn, wanting to see different experiences. We have farms that influence and give us knowledge. We can share a bit of the history of the valley. There is, as everywhere, important nature to preserve and to coexist with. And we knew that that was our role here, as we can see in the Okanagan. I'm gonna keep ahead with the seed. The seed is this idea that we wanted to plant in this place. We wanted to create an example of conscientious farming that cares for the earth, where people of all ages can experience, reconnect with nature, and build community. So yeah, lots of potential here. We thought that to start, we needed some music there. Okay, we had this seed needed good roots to get nutrients, to be sustainable in time, to allow for its growing. And those roots for us means to have strong ethics and values that can put people together into one thinking, that can be adaptive to time, to different conditions. But it's the foundation. So our roots are based in the concepts and the ethics of permaculture, of natural farming. I don't know if you've heard about it. We can talk about him later, Fukuoka. I think permaculture might be a bit more common than the there might be more information about that, but natural farming is also very inspiring for us in this process of observing, of coexisting with nature, of let it be, of be open to possibilities that we might not know yet. There is a great book called The One Straw Revolution, written in the 70s, and that I think it's very relevant for today's way of acting in the world. And of course, also Douglas Talamy, Nature's Best Hope and Bringing Nature Home are also great inspirations, more actual nowadays. Decreasing of pollinators and our role. And this is the call of the garden. What is our role? What we can do? So we think this is very important in giving us hope, giving us a reason and a positive view to act. So in these roots as well, as we joined with the Naramata Center to build this garden, we thought it was very relevant to put our goals together, to agree in those goals, and to know ethics, that these ethics are shared. So as you can read here, but in general, the Naramata Center is an inclusive and welcoming retreat center located here in Naramata. So it's very relevant to create a welcoming place, to be inclusive, to be always open, not locked, to create a variety of options. Everyone that visits the garden, we always emphasize that there is always something you can do, and you can just be. That's, I think, a big characteristic of the garden for its success is to be open and inclusive. And we
share that with the center.
We share that with the Naramata Center. That's amazing to have found them. We also think it's very important, as we thought in the ethics of permaculture, we believe in earth care. Everything that we do needs to be coherent with taking care of the earth. Every decision we take, every idea we can build in the community has to be aiming towards earth care. Education, organic practices, sustainable ecosystem, and resilient food gardens. And of course, fair share. Maybe other gardens work in different ways. We as a community garden want to share the experience. We are open, we all grow together in the same space. And as we say here, we do plan a growing and its workload, and we share that all together. So it's a very inclusive way of growing. Collaborative work. Yeah. So this garden, having the seed, the roots, then starts the interactions that make the seed grow. And we want to show you here a couple of interactions that we find relevant, that we can do a parallel with ecological interactions and social interactions. So our role is facilitate connections. In building soil, for example, we are bringing organic matter and we are allowing for the soil microorganisms and all the living plants to connect and to build what they have adapted and have evolved to do, what is building soil. Taking permaculture principles, this is a small and slow solution. We did not want it to bring truckloads of soil. We want to build it slow. We want to observe how it evolves, and we want to learn from that evolution. In a parallel towards the social interactions, we also want to facilitate connections. We want to build meeting spaces. We want all these bigger living organisms, pedestrians, to come in and to sit. We thought always that it was very important to create sitting areas, to create artistic spots and open, like an open, I don't know, create a journey in the garden.
We use actually the word agora from Latin, from Greece, from Athens, no, like the place in where the democracy was done, no, like in the place of gathering of people, no.
Yeah. And then back to it, because it all connects all the time, right? And this is about like, just come in, just share, just visit, just know your neighbor, just create the connections that will bring us something later. And it's unknown, but we are welcoming that.
Welcome serendipity, finally.
Yes.
Yeah, there was a word that came in many meetings that we had with the stewards of the garden.
Another role that we think we have put here to act is we are supporting communities. We have designed the garden or thought the garden as a master plan to begin with different ecological communities where diversity is the key. We have a food forest area, we have planting guilds area, and we have like a meadow area. So we allow for self-seeders, we allow for perennials, for trees, for shrubs, for varieties of herbs. I think we got the numbers. We have over 15 varieties of tree, over 25 varieties of herbs, perennial herbs, over 30 varieties of shrubs. We are welcoming life, and we create resiliency in that way.
And funny enough, some of the plants just happen to appear there. No, we have a few trees that were volunteers, and shrubs, and many herbs, and of course many natives. You know?
Yeah, and that's very important for us, and something we always want to share with people that visit the garden. How those native plants are giving us so many benefits, and we can see that. And it's not just saying support the natives. They are like the natives, like separate from us. It's we can coexist with them, and we can integrate them because they are part of that system. They are not separate. They grow in between our crops.
Actually, they are the ones that in a way protect the balance for our crops to live healthy, because they are the host, you know, like it's their ecosystem.
They are adapted to it.
Yeah.
So
they are the ones that are going to bring the insects, the different species of bacteria or fungi that
dominate the
soil, that will keep the thing in balance. If they are not there, as Dr. Lamy says, like they are so closely related that if you take out the native plants, you take out the house for the native insects, and with that, of course, bacteria and fungi.
Yeah. Supporting communities from a social perspective, we have been welcoming creativity in the same way. We had installations, we have conversations, we have music, we have structures, we have sign, we have a diversity of capacities that join together. Yes. And that make this space alive. And I think one very important role in this garden is let it be, is to wait, is to observe before acting. Pay attention, not just think that because letting it be, it will happen, something will happen. You have to be attentive to actually learn from what are you observing. Taking the time to making connections, to try and then observe what happened with that you try. And that our stewards of the garden, everyone that participates in the garden, has the power to interact. But we also want to have that moment to share what did you found, what was the consequence of that action. So we allow for different possibilities, but we also want to learn from them.
We share it, no, like this.
So it's a very interesting way of
farming.
Of farming, and to have a community garden as well, because we don't have our goals and our growing crops and numbers very structured. we want things to happen and we want to learn from them. That's our main goal, I think.
This is somehow manage complexity and allowing complexity, embracing complexity, and but trying to avoid what it would be chaos, no, like accepting chaos, but at the end, like they're in communication basically is where we find this balance, communication of respect and contemplation, observation. So if you're open and you take quite a bit to do and to act and to say, you will see enough to start the conversation with the other, no? And the same thing happened with nature, you know, like if you observe what was a problem happened to be that maybe it wasn't a problem, it's just that you didn't realize that in there was something else going on, and once you realize about it, it's quite easy to move forward and coordinate things. Like okay,
so another just little comment I wanted to do: as people visit the garden, we always encourage foraging. So that's, we do have harvesting days where we take lots of harvest, but as you see in the picture, there's lots of food hidden. So it's a great experience to walk the garden and forage for different kinds of food.
Like the base of that meadow, early season is just strawberries.
Yeah. Okay, let's go.
Okay. So in the same way that we want the nature to interact and people to interact, we want the community, broader community to interact. And in any way that we find it's suitable to the space. And that's the way that in a creative way, some of the stewards decide one day that why not to make
art exhibition,
an art exhibition in the garden. And among those artists that were involved in the garden came the idea of creating a path in the middle of the garden that stays until today. And it looks beautiful and it changes the space, and happened to be that then that they became trellises for some of the beans, and and that's serendipity. Like if you ask us if we thought about this step by step before, no, forget it. We just join good ideas and we were open to change, and as like all of us, and that synergy came upon. We have different workshops, talks, and well, also what's going on now. Like we found the possibility of join the Butterfly Way project, and now we're here. So, but when we start this, it wasn't there, no. So, yeah, it's part of the broader serendipity. I want to move fast because I want to read the questions that I think that will be very interesting. And then when you start doing this, the only thing that you gotta do is capitalize this synergy, no? And the way to do that is to do the work that gotta be done when it gotta be done, and that's part of observing and being there, being connected. And here you have an example of this complexity. Like all that is a food forest. You have in the left corner, you have a yellow yarrow that well, at the beginning, we basically accept everything. Like all the plants that we were in need of saving or people that were giving away, we brought it to the garden because the main thing was to create life, and from there on, manage life. You can manage potential, but it's very hard to manage no potential at all. No, potential energy towards synergic energy, and you have there like herbs. There's strawberries, apple trees. There's apricots, sorrel. What else? Like a yarrow, sunflowers. In the back you have sunchokes and many others. Really, it's a lot of species there, but at the same time, it's a place for gathering, and it's a place for shade, and it's a place in where kids actually play around and they have a blast. You know, so it's many things. And in this way, also like that cooperation of all these interacting things is shown in in the community, in the human community, in the companies, in the stakeholders that are related with with heirs, and then with the Okanagan, and finally with Naramata. And that's the way, obviously, that the center has been working with us shoulder with shoulder. Redbird with Diane Ransom that was there, for sure. We work with her.
A great group in Naramata Slow. They are great partners also in this philosophy of sharing, of slowing down, of caring for the earth and
Contemplation,
and the community.
observe, community, local. That way also Naramata Seed Savers as well came upon, and we have the snail now there that it's seed library. All the other landscaping companies that have been helping in many ways, and for sure the arborists, Garden Works and Grow Supply, Lee Valley that gave us tools. And yeah, like you don't need to give too much if we work all together. Like it's pretty easy to create synergy when you have a common goal and a slow pace moving forward. No, yeah. So then it's the adaptation process that comes from this growing situation of all these actors, all these stakeholders working together, and it's the expansion of it, the natural expansion of it, and that's when we came to this final part of the garden for us, in a way, of well, final as a plan. You never know what happens in the future, but as a plan, that is the process of giving this space to the community itself to envision, create, co-create, grow, and take care of. And that's the process that we have been living with other stewards, in where we have been sharing what are our values and what we like of the space and what we would like to see of this space in the future, and moving that towards goals, and then from goals to proper activities and responsibilities, and finding a way to do it among all of us in a very horizontal and cooperative system. And that's where we are now, and that's what is going on now, and it's pretty nice to see.
It's an exciting year this year, and it already started last October to have around 20 stewards collaborating and making this observation, these comments about the garden, and sharing the same
working.
perspective.
Yeah.
So
Recording in progress.
okay.
Okay, and yeah,
Maybe you can leave for questions. I don't know how long did we do.
it took like 25 minutes probably.
Okay, Christine, you tell us.
Yeah.
All right. Well, no, beautiful journey. I really liked how you presented it as well. One thing that I find really quite interesting, well, first of all, I'm going to invite people to put questions into the chat or send a note that you would like to be unmuted. But my first response or reaction, I think, is the first picture that you showed of 2018 turf lawn. And so it is this possibilities. And I guess I appreciate your approach where you have let so many opportunities just come forth. It sounds like much more fun, I think, than having a rigid plan and trying to make sure that you're sticking to the plan and things aren't falling to the wayside. Rather, you're looking for those opportunities and those plants to come up on their own and the interactions with people. So yeah, it was very inspiring. I do appreciate that. So I have one question to start with, and that's from Sandora. And she's asking, is your role in the garden a livelihood one or primary volunteer? And she says she's always curious how more people can find livelihoods in caring for land, ecosystems, and community.
Livelihoods?
Meaning, do you is this what you do for a living, or is this mostly what you're doing as a volunteer, that's sort of an unpaid work? It's certainly
we are stewards, we partner.
So yeah, but like if we are in a way getting something in return for it, like
yeah,
a wage?
as the stewards, as the one who's leading probably quite a bit of the educational work, even though I'm sure that it's shared with others, is there any way that you receive sort of financial
Support.
gain from doing
Well,
this work?
Well, the center has been the one that is been taking some of the, because the whole thing was how to create a, like, this kind of bee economy a little bit. No, like, of course you need money. You, like, we live in a world that you need money, but the idea is that when you have options, there's a lot of waste in the way that we live. So you don't need too much cash to actually capitalize lots. So the center, what they have, and it was an asset for us, it was a place to live. And in that way, we are saving money. So they are not paying us cash, but they are giving us a space to live. At the same time, they have that asset that they are not using all the time. So for them, is
the land.
For them,
and the accommodation,
and the accommodation for us. So for them, is they are winning in both ways, no? And we are winning in both ways. We're receiving, they are receiving. Like, it's synergy. Like, it's not competition. It's not the economy of competition.
It's the same concept of partnering resources that one use and the other has to share. So that's the same approach we use with the Naramata Center. We collaborate to bring this to life.
And we find what are the things that we can do and that are not a major problem for each other, and in that way we realize, well, we actually can join several things without killing each other or killing ourselves, and creating motion, no? And they obviously cover some of the cash thing at the beginning, because you always need a little bit of money here and there. And then we have another job that give us like the cash to leave.
Yes.
But when you have housing and some other conditions, and you have a garden where you can eat, and you have this community working around you, suddenly you don't need that much money.
All right. Well, yeah, I imagine, and it'd be interesting to hear from you sort of how much you're sustaining yourself with what you are growing or what is growing in the garden. Like, if that's allowed you to, to eat well most many months of the year.
Allows many people to eat well. Everyone that visits the garden,
the locals.
Yeah, it's a very productive garden in a way. Yeah. We can always welcome people to harvest and forage as they please, and we are not scared that we're gonna run out of food.
Well, the fruit trees are not that many and they're not that big, but
we live in a place that there is lots of fruit trees, so
it's not too bad.
Yeah.
All right, another question we have is, can you talk about the timeline of building the garden and the process? So, and where did you start with making beds, or with planting more of the food forest?
We did started with a plan, yes. So the original community garden have many rows, just rows to grow. We kept half of that as rows that had valuable perennials like rhubarb, strawberries, raspberries. We kept that. But we modified the other half of the garden towards having more natural shapes and bigger growing spaces, bigger planting areas where you could have guilds of a tree and a shrub and different herbs, and more of a meandering path, because we wanted to create this experience of nature here, and we did not want rows. We want more connections in the soil. So smaller paths and bigger growing areas. So we did have a plan to start. I guess then second, very important, was lots of organic matter, as we showed in the picture.
Kata is really good making like analysis, like from permaculture design to architecture and knowledge. Like, she's able to observe the space and check the bigger ecological conditions, like the path of the sun, how it works, how it connects with the other elements are in the landscape, the path of the people, the behavior of people, the behavior of macro plants, and she's able to draw that in a paper or like in the computer, you know, and that I think was the first biggest thing that we did. Well, that she did really. I helped with ideas, and it's like, oh, that looks good. And yeah, that's the first step, I think, like, is to make an analysis and to draw the space and understand the space. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we had this idea of food forest area, planting yields area, and perennial integration with like annual crops. But it's been evolving. As we said there, we start with that one idea, but then we get more and different things that what we expected. Like you see in this picture, this meadow here, I think it's totally grow bigger and more wild than our original thoughts, but we have been able to understand the benefit of it. And we know that if we were not able to plant more tomatoes there and plant more garlic there, then it's not our space. There is not the need to grow more annual crops. Then maybe it's good, and it's a very relevant role to leave that for nature. So we kind of always can balance to our original plan and our original intention of growing with, well, maybe if we cannot be responsible for all this space, we'll leave that for nature. And then we can also enjoy and learn from what is nature offering to us. So
even though there's several crops that you can eat.
Yeah.
Like and year round. Like, as soon as the strawberry gives up and the asparagus disappeared, we start seeing the self-seeded Swiss chard coming up, and the New Zealand spinach and other leaves, sorrel. Yeah. And they live very happy there, and they're always lushy leaves because they are actually covered by the other plants, against what usually is said about crops, that you want to put as much sun on them as possible. Many broadleaves like to be sheltered by a meadow.
Well, Diane is wondering if there's a way to share your master plan design. Because yeah, you do have, and I know I've seen, I think, a plan. It's beautiful. So if there's a way that we can share, we can discuss that afterwards and share it out with everyone. But the question continues to ask, what is your hope for the garden for 2022 and probably beyond? And as you say, it's co-created with others and with nature itself, but what do you hope for?
The hope for 2022, I think, as we've talked with the stewards of the garden, is to create these the tools that enable us to co-create. So interactions and spaces and ideas, dynamics that allow us to work together. I think it was, we wrote here, it's a transition, because before, as we have told you, we started with this idea. Tom and I were sort of leading this seed that we brought. But now this plant, this garden, has its own life, and we want to create the conditions for the community, the stewards, to be able to share, create, and learn. I think the ecological communities, many of the plants and the perennials, self-seeders, they are very healthy. We have water, we have a drip irrigation that it's with a timer. So the basic conditions for the plant growth, I think they are good already. I think we need to create this social interaction that
was already happening.
Takes care, or more than takes care, value the garden, visit the garden, live the garden, and participates with it.
It's part of it.
The way we grow, you don't need lots of maintenance, but you need to enjoy it. You need to use it so it has a reason to be. So lots of not little, but relevant projects that are taken by the stewards for 2022, like making signs, having education, design as a new face of the garden, co-creatively, co-design. So have an instance that we all share, what do we envision here? I think that's the big purpose of this year, is to create that ownership of the garden for the stewards.
I was wondering if you have any school groups that come to the garden.
Not yet. We have not get to the organized school group, but it's one of the potentials that we've always dreamed to have. Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, to me, yeah, it seems what you're doing and showing is the possibility of the space to be one where a community gathers. But with that, there's also what community takes away, and they can apply in their own homes, maybe just outside of this garden. But do you have any sense what impact this garden has had on the people who have been with you to help steward this and to help see it grow and to see what they're learning and observing and how that's being applied in places just outside of this garden? Is there any sense of that?
Have the comments on the tools.
I think it's thinking that the garden is the one that have done that is maybe a little bit selfish, I would say. I think that we are living a moment in the world, and the garden is part of that moment. And maybe it's being, just because of being there, the chance for many to feel that it's possible, to people that is afraid of starting this alone is being able to do it because there's others that are willful, is the word, maybe, like willing to try to fail together and see that it's actually not a failure. It's just part of the process of learning. And with the center, we have seen more people asking, because with the center, they have visitors, no? So in summer, we invite them to the garden, and we usually give them a tour, showing them what's going on, and talking with them, and sharing the complexity of the space. And they're coming for this is spiritual retreat center now, so they're coming to talk about like the complexity of thinking and living and world, and usually that is actually a very rich moment, and I think that the feedback of that has been really good. The center have seen the need to expand the educational part in that regard as well, and that's something that also we're looking forward probably for this next year. For this year. So yeah, like there is things going on, and yeah,
it goes in both ways. I think at the same time that the garden exists, that the people is already looking for these things and wanting to try and wanting to learn, is at the same time empowering the garden to exist and making sense of why it's there and why it's needed to leave it wild in a way, or be open to observe and to slow down and all these things we've talked.
And for example, people wonder, like, do you need to control? Sometimes, like, that plant is very spready, you know? It's like, that's not spready. It's a plant that you can reproduce and share. And having to be doing that, there's a lot of people that have their own strawberry plants at their houses that comes from the garden, and sunchokes and mint and many others, really. And many of the plants that are in the garden are from people that receive a plant once, and then they realize that they have an extra tree or whatever, and they brought it to the garden. They call us and say, "Hey guys, like, would you like to have a new apricot tree?" And it's like, "Yeah, sure, yeah, bring it in." Yeah.
Well, Sandora wrote a message saying just how much she does appreciate your approach to facilitating the thriving of biology and human community. Like, both are extremely important. But Lucy has a question, and that is, what are the biggest challenges of having a permaculture garden that is subjected to a cold winter?
Challenges? Well, you gotta think well the irrigation system, because it's an expensive and very useful tool. And the fact that there is times in where, like, snow will be the landscape that you will have.
yeah, to plan for the hardiness of the plants, to take care of them appropriately, to know what your limits are. But it's also an opportunity. It's an opportunity to have seasons. I really like that give us an understanding of nature with different stages, different moments. And it's also an opportunity to create, to build maybe, or to try different techniques. We are dreaming in walipinis, in different kinds of greenhouses. We have a cold frame. So it's part of the experience. It's
what it came upon as well was the idea of creating like a classroom or a space, an outdoor classroom to process food, and that's another opportunity. Like the garden is maybe sleeping during the winter, but the massive production of the summer could remain in the community for much longer than actually the lushiness of their leaves, no? And that's also another opportunity, because like I know how to do like jam or whatever, but there's people that are really good, and in the community they have been doing this forever. There's some people that does it every year, and it's an opportunity for everyone to learn from them. And actually that's part of the human patrimony in a way, value, you know. And yeah, so tradition, it's much bigger than what we can actually control, I think.
All right, well that's a really nice ending to this. It's already past the allotted time, so I want to take the opportunity to thank you very much for today's presentation, especially doing it from Chile. It's very nice to see you there, and yeah, that appreciation for seasons. So you'll be coming back, and then hopefully we will gradually be moving into the beautiful spring season. So I'd like to just say that the month of February is over. So this was the session that we were focusing on greener green spaces. For the month of March, the emphasis will be for this webinar series will be on trees, like a special sort of sub-theme around trees in urban areas and ecological approaches and organic land care with emphasis on looking at trees. And then the month following, so that's April, it will be again back to urban agriculture and food sovereignty. So this fits in nicely with that as well. So everybody who's interested in this series, please register through Eventbrite. That way you'll be reminded and receive the link to the recording after this. So Nick, thanks you for this presentation, and Diane. And I would just like to, once again, thank you for joining us today, and hope to see you all again next week.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you,
everyone.
Okay, take care. Safe journey.
Take care.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye to everyone.
Thank you.